Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Vodun Club today to our innovation conference featuring executives from top tech companies across AI, analytics, cyber, fintech, quantum computing, and CRM. My name is Yossi Garmazi, second year MBA here at Cornell, and I'm joined here also by classmates and a good friend of mine, Senat Muli. Senat.
Hey guys, glad to be here.
Yes, so today we are fortunate enough to interview none other than Dan Amiga, co-founder and CTO of Ireland, a company that revolutionizes the enterprise security with the world's first enterprise browser. Ireland is a game-changing approach that not only enhances security and compliance, but also improves the user experience and operational efficiency. Dan is also the founder of Fireglass, a company that he sold to Symantec, and besides that, he is also a successful angel investor, investing in all of his friends from Fireglass Mafia. But we'll get to it later on. So, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yossi, you have to start with the story.
No,
You have to start with your friend dating
yes. So,
story.
it's funny enough, I heard about Ireland back when you were in stealth mode. And a good friend of mine, I would not reveal her name, but she dated Liron Zuarez, one of the software engineer in your company, one of the first employees actually. So I remember she told me, hey, Liron now working with Dan Amiga, the guy that sold Fireglass, and now he has this new stealth startup going on, and it's gonna be big. And yeah, few months later, he just like came out of stealth, and here we are.
Well, I wish I would tell you otherwise, but Liron, he was one of our first employees, and
Amazing.
she made a mistake. He's worth a lot of money, and he by the way, and he got very fit. He started
Ah,
training. So we love him. Liron, if you see this, we thank you so much for all the work you've been doing with us for over 4 years now.
amazing, amazing. And okay, Dan, I thought to start by taking you to the beginning. If you can share with us what led you to the tech world in the first place.
What led me to the tech world? I guess I was always, attracted to computers, and my parents bought me my first PC when I was very young. Actually, I thought about it the other day. What was before the PC? My mother, she used to work at a toy store. Something I haven't mentioned in the past. And I used to play basketballs since my very young childhood. And I think I broke my leg or twisted my ankle, and I couldn't play basketball. So she bought me this. The first one was, I think, a Megason. It was like an early version of the Nintendo or the PlayStation. It was a long time ago. And I was like, oh, I like these games. And then I was like, how do you actually make these games? So I started with doing that, and then they bought me my first PC, and it was a long, 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 long time ago. Um, 35 years ago, man. It's like I'm old now. And then followed by the internet, right? So I guess one of the lucky folks that very early on got a 286 and then a 386, and then the rest is history. This is late 80s.
Amazing. I can tell you that my first game was the PlayStation 1. You started as a software engineer at 8200 Microsoft Schindler Electric, building products to endpoint, network, cloud, and data. Yet you decided to be a founder at the end. Can you share with us what led you to change to founders mode and start building company from scratch?
I think for me, and I meet a lot of young folks fresh out of either the university or the military service here in Israel, out of the intelligence. And what I try to explain people is you plan your career very deliberately, and don't let things, don't count on random things to happen. So in my case, everything was very deliberate. I always felt like I want to do my own company, but I figured out that I want to do it when I have enough experience, when I've seen enough things. So I always tell people, like, if you want to be a founder one day, um, it's not if you'll do it or not, it's when you will do it, right? So I took quite a lot of time to get very experienced and see the enterprise world, the corporate world, the startup world, get experience with a lot of technologies. And then the second thing, if you want to take the random factor away or the luck factor away, is you have to know, when to jump at the right time. And I felt that 2013 was a wonderful time to start a cybersecurity company. There was not a lot of cybersecurity companies or startup companies, but there were a few. And there was a few early acquisitions going in Israel, some early VC traction. So it was also the right timing, right? But I guess I always felt like I want to do something or create my own thing, and I had many different ideas. In general, my career was a mix between being a cybersecurity-oriented professional and being a software engineer. And I always try to take it into being a software engineer because I liked building stuff, right? So that's how I became a founder after a very deliberate, probably 15 years journey, because I started working before joining the IDF programming. So think about it. After 15 years, I started my first company. And then I started Island when I was 37 years old. So it's never a question of when or of if. It's like when do you feel you have enough experience?
And I guess also all the years being an operator in companies were super beneficial for you now with all the success you have in Ireland and also in Fireglass before. And now moving on to Ireland, actually you started it at the very tricky times, the beginning of 2020. Can you share with us how the early days were, like some of the challenges and what led you to move and pivot from a cybersecurity world to more enterprise browser?
We started the company in, if we even take a few months before we started the company, in end of 2019, I finished my retention period with Symantec, or should I say Broadcom that acquired Symantec. And I had a few months to chill and relax, but not really because COVID started. And then in May or June 2020, I called Mike. Mike is my co-founder in Ireland. He's our CEO. Mike was the president and COO of Symantec. Symantec back then was the largest cybersecurity player. And I offered Mike to join me in starting this new company. And this was after months of being sitting at home, in where you can't get out because of COVID, and planning Island, right? What are we going to build? How are we going to build it? And by the way, that hasn't changed for the first 3 years of the company. So what we built for 3 years with about 150 engineers is the deck that I wrote in February to May 2020. But when I showed it to Mike, Mike was like, "This is not a security product. This is an enterprise product." So all the credit goes to my co-founder, which is a true visionary. The second thing he taught me was the adaptability. Is with all the experience that that he brings to the table, and I've done quite a few things in my past. It's all about listening and how quick you can adopt, and that being proud is really not a good thing in business, right? So, I removed the proud away, and I took a step back and I looked at the product and all the features that I thought about and documented. I was like, yeah, what if we take it into an enterprise mindset? And the other thing I would say that's very interesting is when you think about cybersecurity, it's such a big landscape. And I know you guys interviewed quite a lot of people, like very, very strong founders and successful CEOs. But I did not want to create another cybersecurity company. I wanted to solve the user experience challenge. And what is the user experience challenge? It's that magic that happens when you use a piece of software and you say, oh, this is like so cool, I don't need anything else. Like when you go and you buy your Mac and you take it out of the store and you unpack it and you just use it, right? You're not in a hurry to install other software, right? But that's not what happens when you work for a corporate. When you work for a healthcare or financial, etc., and you get your machine with antiviruses and VPNs, so many things. And that contradicts the way you want to work. Like you want to work as a consumer. So it was really about what if we can make folks who work at corporates like work faster, be happier, enjoy the end user experience. Oh, and then that can be a very successful product.
Fascinating. And also, I mean, if you look at enterprise software, it's kind of like a new category in a way. I guess educating the market is a key. You essentially tell the customer that they need something rather than help them to fix something. Can you share with us some of the challenges in selling product aimed at educating the market on user experience, specifically in enterprise software?
That's a really good point. So in general, in our business, you can either build a product that is better than other products that have been built in the past. So you disrupt an existing category. Always easier, by the way, always easier because the money is there. You can analyze and learn about the competition because the product is there, right? As companies grow, they become slower, so you can run faster. So that's one area. Usually, if you're crazy, you don't go. If you're crazy, you don't go there. The crazy people, they go and they try to invent a new category. A new category, as you said, Yossi, is very challenging because people have, a fixed amount of money, and now you're trying to convince them to spend some of that money, which was allocated to other things, into something they haven't heard before, right? So that is very, very, very challenging. But if you think about some of the, the greatest ideas that turned out to be some of the more profitable businesses in the world, it always starts with something that have never been seen before. And what I really like is the AWS example, Amazon Web Services. AWS in 2015, not 20 years ago, not 2005, 2015, you go and, you try to talk to organizations, they go, oh, we will never go cloud. Okay. So, and then the second thing is they already had a cloud. They already had a data center. They didn't need another data center. And when you move to AWS, you have to pay for your existing data center because you can't shut it off yet. And you got to keep paying these guys, right? So, but yet it became one of the most profitable software businesses in the world. So what we did is we figured out there is a huge, huge opportunity in improving end user experience. The second thing is we understood that there is an amazing technology change or unfair advantage with the open source project called Chromium. And we figured out that if we leverage that unfair advantage to create a new user experience, and we really think about the go-to-market motion, how do we explain this to customers? How do we brand it? Magic will happen. We got lucky because surprisingly for us, we saw, very strong adoption very early on. And the one thing that we changed when you invent a new category is we used to go for these big enterprise license agreements. I just want you to pay me, for the whole organization. But what we did is we shifted to a land and expand motion. And that was with a lot of the accounts. And that was really interesting because we got really fast adoption. And then these customers asked for more. We want more modules. We want more users. We want more use cases. So it's kind of like a testament of how good your product is. So sometimes you have to start small and go with the customer. But yeah, inventing a new category, especially one that is in the user path, is one of the hardest things you can do in the software business.
Yeah, so what I will take is a user experience is a key if you want the user to keep using your product for the long term. And it's actually fascinating for me because at Fireglass, you concentrated on web isolation and it was amazing success. I mean, you raised only $20 million and sold it for $250 million. But what did you learn about user experience back then at Fireglass, which was a cyber company that helped you to make the user experience as good as it gets at the island?
So first is, what Fireglass was a whole different product. Island is an enterprise browser. It's a browser like Chrome or Edge, and you install it on your desktop, and you get many, many, many different capabilities like data protection, a network VPN or zero trust agent, a password manager, digital experience, many, many different capabilities built in. Fireglass was a different company. It was a cybersecurity company where you browse the web, and instead of going to the website directly from your browser, we have a remote browser in the cloud that goes and renders that website. So if there's anything dangerous, it detonates in the cloud side, and then only a visual stream gets streamed over, and you get to browse like Instagram or Facebook or Salesforce or what have you. And what we've seen is that for some organizations, usually the regulated ones, this was a really great idea, but people are very sensitive to that 30 millisecond, 50 millisecond, 70 millisecond latency. I always like to say that like 25 or 30 milliseconds latency, it's not a theory. Like that is really critical for end users. In theory, they don't notice it. Right? In reality, they do. So I started getting very allergic to user experience. Very, very allergic. Then the second thing, so what happened with that, which was really a beautiful invention, if I might say, like it was a really clever invention on how to browse the web, but it didn't catch on fire because of the user experience issues. So Symantec ended up acquiring it as an extension to their proxy. So you go to the web through their proxy, and some of the uncategorized traffic or a policy would send 1%, 2% of the traffic to the Fireglass solution, the remote browser isolation solution. So it wasn't a big acquisition, or we couldn't grow it into a big company because it has user experience challenges. Then a wonderful twist happened. Symantec acquired it, and we had to force our developers to install the Symantec corporate image on their laptops. So now had like 30 engineers, and they had the Symantec Windows image, and they had like an MDM, a VPN, antivirus, a DLP agent, and the list goes on. And I noticed that they never opened those laptops. They never opened the laptops, right? They keep on using their own laptops, right? Not the new ones that we bought them. And then I went into the office and I saw everybody's using the laptops again. I was like, why are you using it? And they're like, we have to file the hourly report. So we got to connect to the network. So I was like, these guys are 25, 28 years old. In 10 years' time, which is now, mind you, in 10 years' time, these guys are going to be buyers, like the ones who are 25 or 27 years old. If we start a company in the next 2 to 3 years, once we have a good product to sell, they're going to be the decision makers in the organizations, and they will prioritize not just security, but also end user experience, right? And you see today, people, they don't want to work on a virtual desktop infrastructure. They don't want to wait for bits to be streamed. They just want to have this really, really fast experience, which is what we've been delivering for them. And one short thing to add, you cannot fight end user experience. If you make it better, right? Companies, they will have many objections on why they will prioritize your product next year or in 6 months, or it doesn't connect to the other product. But once you install it and it's magic, right? You can, you really have a successful business. I think Apple made the case, they charge so much on the iPhones, right? And they get so much success because the end user experience is like a really, really interesting. So today we have about 25-30%. We have 200 engineers, about 50 to 60 are only working on end user experience aspects. It's, we spend a lot of time on Figma, altering and changing and building productivity tools. It's a big part of what we do.
And moving on now to fundraising. I mean, obviously, now you just raised $250 million, which is a major milestone for Ireland. But I was curious to know more about the process at the beginning. Can you share with us how was the experience pitching your idea to investor while being at the stealth mode?
So Ireland in total, I think overall close to 750 or 800 million dollars. Manage and allocate that money, with a very deliberate thought process on how to build the business and be innovative in R&D. But it didn't start there. When we raised our seed round, we were debating whether we should self-fund it or whether we should raise outside money. And it was a good time to raise money back in the day. And Mike and I came in with previous experience and credentials, so obviously it was easier for us. But we always knew we need capital infusion all the time to build the business. It's actually a good angle. If you think about a traditional startup company, they raise some cash, then they raise some more cash, right? But it's not, what it does is, it's not how you should build a product. When you're building a product, you want to change the world, you really need a lot of money. And you want to hire the right managers first, and then the right engineers, and you got to build the culture from the beginning. So raising a lot of money early on allowed us to really build what I call a company architecture. And everybody was like, what are you doing hiring managers before you hire engineers? Those managers are with me today and they run the whole operation, right? So, so even for a first-time founder, if you can't raise, $20 million on day one, you should think about what's your company architecture is going to look like. What are you losing by, only have 6 million or 5 million to build your company now, and just plan ahead to catch up with that. Also, raising the money was really funny because everybody thought we were crazy building a browser. Everybody was like, oh, these guys are like, I don't think it's going to pass the investment committee, but it did pass all the investment committees, I guess, based on our experience, but everybody thought we were crazy.
Fascinating story. And last question for myself before we moving on to Senat. Dan, everyone heard about the paper mafia, but there is another one called the Fireglass Mafia. You invested in around 5 to 6 entrepreneurs coming out of Fireglass, a ratio of 20% of the workforce backing them, including Cycle, Build Security, and Axis, which was acquired by HPE. What made the human aspects at Fireglass so successful?
So I invested in Axis Security. They wrote the first check, and that was acquired by HPE, close to $500 million. So they suppressed the Fireglass acquisition. Dor Knafel, a very, very talented guy. And then I invested in Build Security that Elastic acquired. Amit is a very, very capable guy, still at Elastic now. And as you mentioned, Cycode is very successful. ScaleOps also spun out of Fireglass. I guess something was special in the water. No, I am a big believer in working very closely with young folks straight out of 8200 and having them see the journey and learning from them, but also, teaching them on all the mistakes that I've done in the past. So I think, I just picked the most talented people that I met over my time. And, and I was like, you guys should do a company. And I kept nudging them, you should do a company. And I won't tell you who, but I swear to God, I actually called one of the parents. I was like, you should tell your son he needs to go and start a company like ASAP, one of these guys. So, I just saw very, very talented folks. We aim for like very big ideas, and they execute quite well. There was quite a lot of companies spun out of Fireglass. We're very proud about that.
Nice. And who knows, maybe more will come from Ireland, and looking
I
forward to
am
this one.
I am sure a lot of companies will come out of Ireland. Very, very talented folks here. I just think they will come out of Ireland after these guys make so much money. We're building something really, really, really special. So again, I think it's not a question of if. I'm sure 10 to 15 companies will spawn out of Ireland. It's a question of when is the right timing, because we're really building a generational company here, or we're trying to.
Amazing, and looking forward to it. So, Dan, thank you so much. I learned so much from you. And yes, Sanat, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So, being innovative at Island is not just about writing better code. You focus a lot on the product and even hire designers alongside cyber and other software engineers. And so I know you touched upon this about the end users, the importance of the end user experience, but how important is product design at Island, and why is that important to you?
Oh wow. So we have a say, like I always try to tell everybody. We have one rule in Ireland. Like there's one rule. If you go and ask people here, companies, they try to do like, oh, here's my 3 bullets, like here's my philosophy, here's my culture. We have only one rule in engineering, or one thing, and we call it move fast and get into the details. Okay. So, let's answer your question from the get into the details perspective, right? So every line of code, every design, every product decision we make, we try to be really, really, really into the details. When you talk about design, we have, I think, close to 10 designers on the team here. We really look at, like I personally look at most of the stuff we're doing before we're building it. It is, super critical for us. And then of course you have to balance it with how fast do you ship, when do you ship, things like, when do you take something to go to the market? Otherwise you're in the design lab for 3 years. But such a crucial element in what we do, and can't be more thankful for our design team. I'm being very hard on them. So if they see it, I'm sorry.
Awesome. That's
But we do see, I gotta tell you, we have a Slack channel called Customer Quotes. So on that customer quotes, a lot of us, when we talk to customers and they say something, we publish it for the team. And, one of the things we're more excited about is, how excited they are from a new capability that we built. And when you think of, and like a new user experience widget, etc. And when you think about Island, it's not a management console thing where an admin logs in and they spend 10 minutes configuring something, or a website where you log in and you spend, 20 minutes, right? They spend 10 hours a day in that operating system, in that browser, right? So every pixel is really important.
That's so awesome that you're very meticulous and put a lot of effort into design. And so moving more to the CTO role, how's your role changed at Island compared to, all the previous companies that you worked at?
I'd say, we have 200 folks in engineering now and going, right? So I can't write code anymore. And I used to. So, and the guys don't believe me. And then, and then we go into a debate and it was like, how do you know this? Because I wrote it like 10 years ago. But now, what I do is it's more about improving people, right? So if you think about like so many people, right? And obviously they're divided into a structure that we invented. We call those islands. So islands are like they're a unit of execution for a specific product, right? So we have an island that works on a password manager and an island that works on authentication, right? So you group these people into a structure, and then if they're not good enough, of course, then they don't we have to nicely in a nice way say goodbye. But we are very methodical in our hiring process, and we have so many great people. But just like me, just like you guys, just like everybody has an Achilles heel or a place where they need to get better. So what I learned over the years is how to improve people, how to analyze and see where we can help them with their career, or where we can help them with accomplishing their tasks, and give them not just feedback, because feedback is consulting. We are not consultants. Is we have to work with them on improving. So we're actually going to sit down and build a technical architecture with them, or sit on the design, or explain why they made the wrong product mistake, and explain them why. Why did they do that? Why are we doing something else? So working with these folks and making them better, is exponential growth to your organization. Because if you work with them 4 years, and we do a monthly meeting with every island, right? So, you have hundreds of interactions with them. So you improve them, quite a lot. You see people, after 2, 3, 4 years, employees, they get so much better. They're so good. They're domain subject expert. I mean, that's what I learned. Is my job is to push them forward and help them.
So it sounds like you really understand your engineers, you understand the product. And so as a CTO, how do you also allocate your time interviewing customers, learning more about what they want and translating that into product?
That's a good question. So we do meet with, I personally, I spend about a week a month in the States, working with customers, and also obviously quite a lot over Zoom, right? So that feedback is, invaluable. We also following the previous question. I also try to explain the team how to take customer feedback and what is the right way to translate it into a product that's not building what the customer said, because now you're building a product for that specific customer, right? And your job is to build a product for everybody, right? And you need to, in software, you need to make it repeatable, right? So that's the other thing. It's not just listening to the customer, it's translating it to the product. And the other thing I learned through the years is you have to communicate to the customer what's your average feature request delivery time. So we are on about 21 days of feature request delivery, right? It's something you need to educate the organization. So you definitely have to listen to the customers. On the other hand, on the flip side, if most of the people I told them we're going to build an enterprise browser, like, I get it for free, right? So you have to really take into account, like you gotta dream big, right? But then work with the customers every day to make sure they're happy and successful.
Makes sense. And so, on that, 21 days is pretty rapid. So, I want to ask about AI, and especially in cybersecurity. So, two angles. Does AI impact, how the developers work? And more importantly, how has the rise of AI impacted, enterprise browser security, and specifically Island?
So first, AI is integrated with most of the things we do, and it required us to take a step back and really do an overall work stream in every island on how we can use AI to improve the product, to improve the way we work, right? Which is in the early innings, right? So, all of these tools are insane, they're great. But it takes time for the AI to learn your architecture and learn your code repository and being able to deliver more accurate results. That together with the models getting better, I think in a year or two, it will be quite phenomenal. Most of my guys and most of my employees today, they use AI for coding. So yeah, it gives you like both angles. On Island specifically, because we're building such a big variety of capabilities, we really analyze with every different product what is the edge on top that we can use AI to improve the product. It's like in every different product, it's a different answer. But really, really cool stuff. And finally, I do think, like when you think about the world, you have your browser, which is the operating system, and the AI front ends will become another critical part of human-machine interaction. Like when you launch the ChatGPT, or when you launch Anthropic and you have those tabs on the left, it's really a browser, right? It doesn't have a URL, doesn't have an address bar, but it's really a browser. So there are things that are going to change in the next few years, which we'll have to adhere to for sure.
Very nice. And then, moving on to, learning more for advice. You kind of touched upon this, but do you have any advice for young entrepreneurs?
Advice for entrepreneurs. I would say, well, I started with one, which I think is very valuable, which is, if you feel you want to start a company, just, plan your career on how you will get the most amount of data and experience. It's kind of like doing, it's kind of like doing an MBA. I tell some of the guys, they come to interview, I go like, you guys should pay us because we, I look at you guys and I think it's going to be a success if we teach you and you'll enjoy, the process and you'll get better, right? So I think that's the first one. And the second advice I would give is, ask yourself, can you be the best in the world, a subject matter expert on the topic you're going to start a company? So I think when you look at the best entrepreneurs and you reverse engineer the formula, they are the best in their specific business. It's not that they're generic. Very few, in my opinion, are generic operators, right? The best ones are, I am the best in the world in that, because by definition, if you're able to raise $1 billion, somebody else will raise 600 or 1 billion, and they will compete. So technology is a competitive business, right? Competitive sport. You're only going to be the best if you're the best in what you do, if you're able to learn and get into that. So I think that's the other one. If you're not in a position, if you're starting, a drone company and you're not in a position to be the best in the world in that, right? Your chances are not great.
Yeah, makes sense. Any mentors having so much experience? Do you have someone that's impacted you the most?
Wow. My co-founder, Mike Fay, he impacted me most. He's my mentor.
Nice. Any special hobbies outside of work?
It's, so I actually do quite a lot of yoga, and I love it, and not because it's relaxing, but because for me, it's like I told you guys, is I look at my Achilles heel where I am not strong enough or flexible enough or, open enough. And then I work on my weak spots. And then over time, that journey, over time, you get better. So you start with headstands, you go to forearm stands, you go to handstands, and everybody can do it. I started when I was like 36 years old. I wasn't flexible. My yoga teacher, he likes to take pride of the fact that I was his worst, like the worst beginning ever, right? And it's like a long game versus you think about all other sports. It's like you gotta play it now, you gotta win, right? And yoga for me is like a journey. It's very similar to the tech world. It's like every day you have to have these small wins, and that compounds over time. So I really like that, and it makes me more relaxed.
Nice, nice. Uh, that's cool. What's your favorite movie or favorite book?
Oh my God. Well, I only do I only read the tech books and startup books, etc. So I'm very boring here. I really like the hard things about hard things. I really like that, which means that, and Yossi started with it. He started the recording with, "Oh, Dan, congratulations on your success." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like it's so hard. Every day is like so hard in our business, right? Every day is so, it's only when you're in the outside, it's like everything looks great. I'm sure if you go and ask the best companies, they go like, oh, my quarter is bad, my engineers are not great enough. So I really like, if you haven't read it, The Hard Things About Hard Things, me being an operator for a long time, is very much resembles the truth. Everything is hard, and you gotta enjoy the game.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for sharing this. This was super interesting. Yossi, back to you.
Yeah, so Dan, thank you so much. We really enjoyed this conversation. We learned so much from you, and we appreciate your time and trusting us and just sharing your journey with us. So thank you so much. And for everybody else in the audience, stay tuned. We have amazing episodes from NVIDIA CTO to Zoom CPO, Sierra, Redis, and a bunch of other cool companies. So Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.